Good to see you. Thanks for joining me. The Switch 2 has been out for 1 week, so I want to share my thoughts and perspective on that as a game developer, as a gamer, but I also want to hear from you guys as well. So if you are new here, then welcome. Thank you for coming to hang out with me, and if you are a new subscriber, I really appreciate that. I develop games for a living, and I don't have a lot of free time, so I try to keep up these regular uploads because so many people tell me that they just enjoy the videos. To be totally honest with you, my favorite content is just the funny jokes. So I try to do as much as I can in terms of the funny stuff. Sometimes I'll just think of a dumb joke and film it. Um, but I'm trying to share more useful stuff. People tell me they like hearing my insight when it comes to games, analyzing things. But I'm trying to also create helpful stuff for you guys that are getting started into game development. So in terms of advice, some tips and insight, and creating assets, music, and 3D models that you can use in your games. So this is basically a variety channel where I'd like to hang out with people and have some fun here. So I know in my previous videos I'm starting to sound like a real dad here. I keep saying I don't have time, I don't have time. So I want to discuss this, and I don't have a lot of time, so I can't actually do any editing on this video. I've just got to upload it and then run. I've got a meeting to get to. So before we get to the Switch 2, I want to show you something really cool. Check this out. So this is a guitar that is quite short scale. If you're familiar with guitars, you might notice this is significantly shorter than a typical electric guitar. And I think this is really cool. The reason why this is so short is because this is primarily designed for a young person. This is not designed for adults. And because of that, there are some considerations, and also it's not the greatest quality. There were some problems with it. So I've had to do a significant amount of work in terms of luthier work, doing setup and adjusting, changing some things. I've replaced the pickup here. So how electric guitars work is very similar to the Switch 2 in that it uses magnets. This component here is called a pickup, and it uses magnets to pick up vibrations from the strings. Now, the magnet that this came with, the pickup, was not very good quality. So I've replaced that with something significantly better. I get a much better sound. It sounds exactly like how I want it to. And I discuss these because I use instruments that I build and customize to create soundtracks for my games. And you can download a bunch of music that I've created for free. You can use them in your projects, whether it's a game or a video. So again, this is a product that, okay, it's not great. Yeah, it's good enough for a young person, but for an adult has different expectations from young people. So if you hand this to an adult, they might say, oh, this is the worst. This is not good enough. This is, I expect more out of this. My expectations are not being met. Well, here's the thing. Adults have different reference points. We have different expectations. This is designed for a young person. And so if you hand this to a young person, they're going to say, hey, this is great. This is the coolest thing ever. This is the best thing. This is the best guitar I've ever used. So it's important to keep that in mind when we take a look at products that are primarily designed for young people. Adults might have only negative things to say about it because your expectations are different, your needs are different, your perspective is different as well. So even if that is the case, you can make adjustments and improvements to make these kinds of products more appropriate for adults. And so if you are into tinkering and electric guitars, this is a terrible brand. I don't recommend Carrera. Awful, but the products are pretty cheap and you can improve them if you are a tinkerer yourself. So that is just something cool that I wanted to share with you. So let's talk a little bit about the Switch 2. Right off the bat, basically we have a bigger console. The Joy-Con are bigger, the hardware feels premium, and it has a much better kickstand. I did not pick up a Switch OLED because I already have a Switch and the kickstand is constantly falling over, so I'm often finding things to prop up my Switch to hold the Switch up. With the Switch 2, that is not an issue because the kickstand can be set to variable angles and the width of the kickstand extends through the entirety of the console. At first, I was disappointed about the firmware here. And again, I'm going to be approaching this both as a gamer and as a game developer. At first, I was disappointed. I wanted something cool, a new firmware, but I realized that my expectations for that were coming from the wrong place. This is a very good decision that the firmware is basically the same. This means that anyone that has used a Switch can migrate to a Switch 2 seamlessly and know immediately how to do it, but also this means that there can be some compatibility and consistency between the Switch and Switch 2, which we will discuss a bit later in the video. So I'm actually glad the firmware is consistent. Originally, I was disappointed. My expectations were coming from the wrong place. After thinking about it, just letting it simmer, cooling, letting my head cool, I realized, wait, this is actually a very good idea, and I do like this. The most important thing to me about the Switch 2 is game performance, especially when it comes to backward compatibility. There are many games for the Switch that I started playing and stopped playing because the performance was not good. That means the frame rate is bad, the game is choppy, it stutters, it's unpleasant, and I just want to enjoy a game and not have to wonder why the game is not running well. Um, and I know many of you out there are in the same boat as me, and that is why I picked up the Switch 2 on launch day. Was Nintendo hinted that original Switch games would run better, but they didn't exactly say how much. The answer is Switch games run so much better on Switch 2 that that's this there for me there doesn't feel to be a reason to use the Switch anymore. When I have the Switch 2, I can play my Switch games on Switch 2, and that is what I'm most impressed and what I'm most uh, glad about for this new platform is finally a Switch that works great, the games run great. So I'm going to work on a video, hopefully launch in a couple days, to explain the difference between the Switch edition, Switch 2 edition, the Switch 2 update. Some games receive Switch 2 editions, like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and this allows the game to take full advantage of Switch 2 features such as higher resolution or HDR or more buttons on the controls that can add new features, but basically the games can run excellently at great frame rates. They can run at higher frame rates than they did on the Switch and a higher resolution. They can use more advanced visual techniques to look way better. So that is something that I'm interested in, even though it is a little bit confusing. I hope that this becomes a bit more clear over time. The HDMI output, I'm not a technical expert. There are experts that focus on HDMI and the signal that's output and everything involved with that. That's outside of my wheelhouse. What I know is that the game looks great when I plug it into the TV. As far as I consider myself just a run-of-the-mill consumer. I'm not going to hyper-examine HDMI signals or audio signals. To me, it looks great on my TV, but there was a problem. So in my living room, I have an older TV that has stereoscopic 3D. It's an LCD TV. It works great. I still enjoy using it. It's not the best image when you compare it to, say, like an LED TV, but I like it because it's got stereoscopic 3D. It looks fine. And the Switch 2 was not compatible with that television. The dock would not detect the TV, or the TV would not detect the Switch 2 dock, so I'm unable to use the Switch 2 on. To me, the TV's not that old, but I'm getting older. I'm middle-aged these days. And what I think is a TV that is not old is apparently too old to work with the Switch 2. So that's not disappointing on the technology, that's disappointing on my perspective. The eShop is significantly improved. I'm very glad to see this. I spent maybe a total of an hour or so just within this first week scrolling through the eShop. I just want to scroll through the shop and discover games. I want to stumble upon games, find something that looks interesting, pick it up, and find a new game that way. discoverability is hugely important on a digital storefront. And while the shop does not do a great job of helping you find games of particular styles, because genres are often very dishonest. You see so many games that are dishonest about their genres, and so by trying to find a game by genre is totally useless on the eShop because you have games that are not, say for example, RPGs, but they claim to be RPGs because they want to leverage that genre, and they are not RPGs in any way, but they claim to be. And so you try to find RPGs, and you're flooded by what are basically trashware mobile games. Very disappointing, but the performance of the eShop is significantly better. Next, I want to discuss my favorite feature on this. That is Game Share. This is a feature that this is my most wanted feature as a game developer, and I did not believe that Nintendo would implement it, especially in the way that they implemented it, because in the, I think maybe a year and a half ago or something like that, a year, I made a video explaining why Nintendo would not do this because it would take a huge amount of work. It has to be implemented in the operating system of both the Switch and the Switch 2. And I was saying, look, Nintendo won't do this. It's just a huge amount of work. It's such a niche feature, but it would open up a massive amount of creative gaming opportunities for gamers as long as developers understand what they can achieve with this feature. And it turns out Nintendo implemented it, didn't really talk about it that much, and I went about 3 or 4 days not even realizing this feature was implemented in this way, and that the Switch 2 can use other Switch consoles as a second screen. It's not just about co-op. Nintendo has only shown 2 or 3 games or so, or four, that use the game as co-op. And yes, if you own a Switch 2 and a game like Fast Fusion, you can use Game Share to locally play multiplayer with someone else. If they have a Switch or Switch 2, they can have their own screen and you can do multiplayer. But Game Share can do more than that. Game Share, if the game is designed for it, a game can use Game Share to use a second console as a screen. So in essence, it works like a Wii U gamepad. This opens up potential to emulate DS, 3DS, and Wii U games because you can have your Switch 2 docked and displaying on TV, and then you can use a second Switch console, a Switch or Switch 2, and use that as your controller so that you have the 4K high quality video on the TV, you have your console in hand, and you have a second screen there. You can use that for your maps, your inventory, or you can use it for unique gameplay features. As a developer, I will be using this to the fullest extent possible. I don't own a Switch 2 development kit yet, but when it is available to me, I'll be working like a madman to make some. I just want to make really cool and interesting games using the dual screen setup. Imagine if you've ever played Nintendo Land on the Wii U, if Nintendo brought Nintendo Land over to Switch 2, and then we can once again enjoy the asymmetrical gameplay of having one player using a screen that no one else can see, and the other players are viewing the game on the TV, and they're working against the player that has this. So there's a number of game concepts that I've had to scrap over the years that I can now explore again due to this creative uh, setup that Nintendo has implemented. So I'm over the moon. I'm absolutely ecstatic. We have Game Chat, which I personally have not used yet, but I have watched people using it. I understand the point of Game Chat. It allows you to see someone else's game screen. You can chat, you can use a camera and talk. That's cool. I don't think I personally will be using that feature. It's not for everyone. Some people are going to use it a fair amount. For me personally, once you reach your middle ages, your priorities and the things that you value change significantly from when you are a younger person. Your time is very limited. So I use gaming as a reason and an excuse to catch up with my friends and to spend time with them in person. One of the most important things you can do in life is spend time with other people, spend time with people that you care about. And I do not want to sit at home playing a little video game by myself. So I will call a friend over and I'll say, hey, let's catch up, let's hang out, we can play some games. That also is a reason and excuse to pick up games that are multiplayer. So for me, I won't be using game chat, but that's a user to user case. For me, I don't want to use that because I would rather spend time with people in person, but there are other people, other gamers, other users out there that don't really have that kind of opportunity. They live too far from friends and family. Game chat's going to be excellent for that. Um, but I think it's free now, and then it will be part of the subscription service later on. So the subscription service, basically, I just want to quickly discuss GameCube and other emulators like the N64. These, I believe, are the best versions of emulators for previous Nintendo platforms that I've ever seen on an official Nintendo platform, because the GameCube has enhancements such as running games at higher resolution. N64 games run at higher resolution. This is not something we've seen before. If you look at the Wii U and 3DS emulators, they run games at whatever resolution the previous platforms were, and then the games didn't look that great. This is brilliant. These games run well, they look great, and I'm hugely impressed. So these are great. That is basically all I'm going to discuss when it comes to the features, other than using this as a mouse. This is not, they're not that comfortable for me. I think for a child, for a younger person, using this as a cursor is going to be fine. You put the skates on there. I have a hard time holding this comfortably. My hands don't really know where I'm supposed to hold this. I've ordered a third-party peripheral that gives us a wider profile, so it feels like a mouse. It is a bummer that I have to purchase that through a third-party platform. I feel it would behoove Nintendo to offer a peripheral like that that gives it the shape of a mouse and call it the Pro Skates or the Pro Mouse Grip, and it can be an official Nintendo product, and they can, it's plastic. It doesn't have any electronics. It's something that they can put on the shelf. It's their branding. Maybe they can have colors on it as well. That is something that I would really like to see, is the Pro Mouse Grip from Nintendo. It's cool finding this fun stuff from third-party developers, but I would it would be way cooler if Nintendo had it officially. Then they can put cool patterns on it. Yeah, for games. Here's the Mario themed one, here's a Zelda themed one. I think that would be a great idea. I think people would really like it. Um, the mouse controls work fine. I haven't played many games. I played Welcome Tour, and I do want to discuss Welcome Tour. I'm not happy about having paid, well, I paid $20 Australian, so that's closer to maybe 13 US, and I'm not happy about it because the game itself is not a game. It's an interactive instruction manual. The mini games that are included are not fun, and the presentation feels sterile and workmanlike. And the craftsmanship on Welcome Tour is fine. There's nothing wrong with the quality of how it was created. I'm not saying they did a bad job making it. I'm saying it's not fun. It's quite boring. And the quizzes were, I'm not going to say infuriating, but they felt insulting and they were not fun. I was doing the quizzes thinking, no, they'll get more interesting. With each passing quiz that I took, I felt my sanity being chipped away at, and I felt like I was being tortured. And eventually I stopped doing the quizzes. They were not fun at all. The mini games, the only one I really enjoyed was the golf one, where you use this and you hit the, it's a product like that it should have been free. It should have been included on the Switch. It should have been a free download. It feels insulting that it was $10. And then, again, I am not saying this to say, oh, yeah, the Switch 2 sucks. Oh, boo hiss Nintendo. I'm going to be fair and unbiased in this. I felt really insulted by Welcome Tour in that I was asked to pay $10 for it, and the end product is not worth $10. It is an interesting showcase. I think it is an important showcase to show what this console can do. Yuck. Gross. I didn't like having to pay $10 for it. So there we go. I'll leave it at that. I'm really enjoying Mario Kart World again. I use it as an excuse to call friends over and say, hey man, it's been a couple months, time to hang out, let's play some Mario Kart. And my friends that have come to try the game, hugely impressed. They weren't going to get a Switch 2, and they really liked the open world. They enjoyed the racing. Um, Obviously, I put in a couple days. My friend came over and immediately was getting first place. He doesn't even play Mario Kart, and he was getting first place, and I'm ending up, you know, second, third, and it's like, oh man, what's wrong with me? So we were having a lot of fun. It's really great. I've shown him Zelda. I've shown friends, the improvements that are in there, the updates to Pokemon. And now I've got a friend that says, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna grab a Switch 2 now. Now I get it." So I feel positive about the Switch 2. I'm glad that the system is what it is. It's powerful, it's streamlined, it does what I want it to do. It does exactly what I want it to do. It even has support for cameras. As a developer, I'm going to use the cameras in ways that are um, basically transformative to the gameplay itself. For example, walking around outside, taking photos, and then generating in-game, say for example, monsters that you can recruit for battling, generating spells, generating weapons using the luminosity and the colors that are in the image that you take with the cameras. Things like that. I want to make something cool and interesting and fun. Um, and the Switch 2 will let me do that. I was initially disappointed because I thought, great. I'm not going to have anything interesting to do. My favorite platforms to develop for were actually the Wii U. Number one, I just love how creative the Wii U is. Second is the 3DS. There's so many great things you can do with those platforms. And on the Switch, it just didn't feel like it had that creative fire to it. Switch 2, I see, oh, with Game Share, with the camera, with the mouse controls, you're going to be able to do some awesome stuff. So I hope you've enjoyed spending a bit of time with me. Thank you for watching the video and being here. Um, I am interested in hearing what you have to say about the console and how you feel about it. I feel very positive. I feel great about it. I'm very much looking forward to this. I'm not disappointed. There is nothing about this that disappoints me, except one small thing, Game Share. When you're using Game Share, there's a bar at the top of the screen that says using Game Share, and then it shrinks down the resolution of the game. I I would like very much if Nintendo updated the development environment, the operating environment to allow developers to hide that bar, because there are gaming experiences that would be incredible if we just could have that full screen. Say for example, a Wii U, 3DS, DS emulators. So if we could just get rid of that game share bar would be nice. Okay, take care of yourselves. Be well. I got to run to a meeting. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.